Hello and welcome. I'm your host, No Hops, and welcome back to another episode of Hop Takes, a show that allows a hopelessly obsessed NBA fan like myself to spew out all my takes on NBA teams and players. Today's episode is about the Boston Celtics, one of the greatest franchises of all time, and one of the greatest disappointments of last season. Let's talk about it. This team has one of the best foundations in the league, with them having Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown obviously, along with a great defender in Marcus Smart, which allowed them to reach a third seed last year. Going into last season, Celtics fans should have had nothing but excitement for the future of their team. I even thought that they were going to reach the finals before the whole James Harden Nets trade went down. Boy oh boy, I was so wrong. Going from a third seed with a 48-24 record and a conference finals appearance to a 7th seed with a 36-36 record and a first round exit. The only thing that comes to my mind when I look back on this team is, what the fuck happened here? And that's a question that I want to answer this video, along with what to expect from them for the future after this absolute tragedy of a season. I don't think there's just one big reason for why this team failed. Instead, I think that it's a ton of smaller reasons that all added together. The first reason being the Eastern Conference's significant improvement. Looking back at the 2019-2020 season's Eastern Conference, yeah, this conference was hot garbage. At the top you have the Bucks, who were the best team in the league, but they didn't have Drew Holiday, and instead they had Eric Bledsoe, who was kind of a liability at times. Raptors made second seed without Kawhi, and admittedly their team last year was much better than the team that they have this year. But the fact that this team lost their superstar and was still able to make the second seed is just a telling of how bad this conference was. The Pacers, a starless Brooklyn, and the Orlando Magic made the playoffs. The Pacers made no major changes this year, and what do you know, they declined as well. They went from a 4th seed to a 10th seed. Brooklyn obviously got all their superstars, and the Magic, before they decided to blow it up, were poor. Now, I'm going to list off all of the teams in the East that made dramatic improvements this year, whether it be through roster changes or player improvement. The Atlanta Hawks, the New York Knicks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Washington Wizards kinda, and the Chicago Bulls. Nah, they wish that they could be better, but I mean, it's just rough to be a Bulls fan. In contrast, the Celtics had a fairly uneventful offseason. The biggest changes, I believe, were getting rid of Gordon Hayward and signing Tristan Thompson. At the time though, this was seen as fine because they had 2 young players that were expected to get better, and therefore the team was expected to get better. But that obviously didn't happen, and I think that was due to some of the other factors, one of them being Kemba Walker. I really quick want to preface that I've got a lot of respect for all NBA players in the league, and I'm not trying to hate. But if you're a Celtics fan, you should be happy that Kemba is off your team. Kemba can even be compared to Porzingis in the way that he missed the same amount of games as him, their point productivity is the same, and they have equally bad contracts. And if you watched my last video on the Mavs, then you know that being compared to KP is definitely not a compliment. But look, Kemba has his good days every now and then, but the last thing that the Celtics need is an inconsistent scorer. When you specialize in scoring, then you're not going to fit with Tatum and Brown, of whom are scorers. That's why fans of the Celtics should be stoked about this Al Horford trade. Since you've still got a bad contract, but at least now you've got a role player who can help with the rebounding, get some high percentage inside shots, and doesn't need the ball in their hand to necessarily be a helpful player. All the best for Kemba in OKC though, where he should get more possessions, and hopefully has more offensive freedom and all that. A real quick last point which had an effect on the Celtics season this year is the primary enemy of the NBA, injuries. The Celtics had the 3rd most games missed due to injury and health and safety protocol this year. This isn't very good for chemistry and winning, seeing as you're not going to have your best squad on the floor as often, and therefore you'll probably be more likely to lose to the worst teams. Now that the regular season length is going back to normal, along with a longer off season, You can expect this team to be back in top shape for next year. Jaylen Brown's wrist injury is set to be better in 3 months, I believe, so he'll be completely set for next season. So, as a Celtics fan on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried should you be for the future of this team? I'm giving them a 3. I would have rated it higher had they not gotten rid of Kemba, but now that he's out of their way, they can purely focus on developing their team and getting some potential role players to put around Tatum and Brown. If the Celtics keep their current core, then I see them taking control of the East in the somewhat near future. Their 2 stars are still so young, and Tatum is proving himself to be a superstar, so I genuinely see a championship or 2 in this team. You might just need to give them a few years. I'm pretty sure cap space in this team is in the negatives, so I'm not exactly sure if they can be very active as free agency, but I do think that they should have a very aggressive offseason in terms of making the right trades, since we saw what happened when they didn't do anything. The one thing that may be a worry for Celtics fans is that their decline might not just be for 1 year, that the Celtics are in a serious slump that cannot just be fixed by waiting it out. I personally don't think that this will be an issue and that they'll finish in the top half of the playoffs. But if there's one thing in the NBA that we have learned this year, it is that anything can happen. So yeah, that's all I got to say about this team. I think that they're on the right track to get out of this season's slump, and if you got Jason and Jaylen, you're in a good spot. Anyways, if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it massively. We're 1 push away from hitting 100 subs, and if you want to be in that 100 sub club, now's your chance. Also, leaving a like helps with the algorithm in that, so if you do that, that'll be quite nice. Anyways, I've been No Hops, and I'll see you in the next one.